Foreign policy writer and Young Voices contributor Jerrod Laber, live and up late with me right now on the Final Five. Jerrod, good to see you again.
Great to be here.
I'm trying to look at this whole situation as it plays out right now, and there's a temptation for many people to compare it to how we saw the buildup to the war in Iraq, which now is almost 20 years old. But as you see this shaping up and where we stand right now, and the approach the president took today, is this sustainable? Is this sort of a path of détente we're seeing between the two nations for the time being?
I mean, there's a short reprieve, but unfortunately, we're kind of back to square one. We're kind of back to the status quo before these last couple weeks. Donald Trump had a really great opportunity today. I mean, the Iranians, they responded to our attack on Soleimani basically in nothing but a symbolic manner. They know that they can't go toe-to-toe with the United States in a military conflict, and they don't want that. But they also have domestic political pressures, and they couldn't stand idly by. So they let the United States know, through Iraqi channels, that they were going to retaliate in a very symbolic way. This was a natural sort of place for Donald Trump to start the de-escalation process. But instead, what he said was, we're basically back to the status quo that got us here in the first place. No nuclear deal, crippling economic sanctions and the like. So really, this just starts maximum pressure is inherently an escalatory policy. And so we'll probably see something similar that we've seen play out over the last year start to play out again in probably some different forms.
What amazes me right now is as we see a lot of the debate over this, and obviously it plays out on cable news, it plays out online, is that the lines are a little bit different this time. There are some people saying, let's pedal the metal, let's go after Iran, let's make a point here. And there are many people who were hawkish when it came to the run-up to the war with Iraq, who are saying, hey, look, pump the brakes, let's de-escalate, let's end this situation right now. Do you think the people around the president are guiding him one way or another, or is it just coming down to how the president, what his gut says?
I think it's a little bit of both, but the president has definitely surrounded himself with more hawkish people, despite his often rhetoric of sort of non-intervention and staying out of stupid wars and whatnot. He's still surrounded himself with, John Bolton obviously is gone now, but spent a lot of time in the White House. But now that Mike Pompeo, as the Secretary of State, is quite hawkish, particularly on Iran. So I think there's a little bit of the president's gut, but also his advisors in this realm, in foreign policy broadly speaking, have not been doing him any favors.
So as we move ahead here, because I'll tell you, to be honest, last night around 9 o'clock it was announced the president would not be making a statement, because I think a lot of people wanted to know what direction we were headed in. We didn't hear anything from the president until today. That delay, I think, gave me, at least from my perspective, a little hope that we weren't going to wake up to the midst of another war. So what, as things stand right now, where we're looking at this situation, what can change that would change the president's mind, change the United States' mind at this point?
Well, basically, an accident. I mean, it's essentially what it is. Those of us who have been warning about war with Iran over this maximum pressure campaign, we've never argued. We've never been waiting for like sort of a Pearl Harbor moment where Iran would do something very provocative and brassy, and the United States would be forced to respond in sort of an overwhelming fashion. This escalation, basically, we're worried about something happening by accident. That particularly between the two regimes, there's very little communication. There's some back channels that are happening with Switzerland sort of acting as a go-between, but there's very little communication. So the risk of a miscommunication and one side doing something that the other perceives in a way that is more confrontational than the perpetrating side intends it, and then that sets off sort of an escalatory spiral that is hard to contain. That's always been the argument from at least from me and from people who are arguing similarly to me, that it's not the United States is itching for or Iran are itching for conflicts, but we're one accident away from there actually being one.
Well, and especially too when you see what played out earlier this week with that whole back and forth whether or not there was a letter that was pulling us out of Iraq or not, and then all the fingers being pointed. I think a lot of people are looking at this and they're not confident that the right decision is going to be made. But here we are, and fortunately we're at this point where we're not seeing a war, we're not seeing escalation. We're going to watch this very carefully. Jerrod Laber, always good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
We're back after this in the final.